Frankenstein is an important work in the Romantic tradition, but there's a movement of literature in which it has even more significance. One that's still around with us today in earnest, not just as a throwback, but as an honest-to-goodness movement that's still alive and kicking. Gothic literature began around the same time as Romantic literature, so they kind of grew up together, and there's a lot of overlap between the two. However, Gothic lit has really forged its own path and own identity so that we can easily recognize it today. Some significant Gothic writers from back in the day were Edgar Allan Poe, the Bronte sisters, Bram Stoker, and some current ones include Stephen King or Anne Rice. This genre has stuck around because it taps into something that maybe was made possible by the Romantic movement. Humans are attracted to stories that challenge the idea that everything is right in the world. In fact, it seems that people want to indulge in dark tales all the time. It's no secret that dark stories fascinate us, but why is this the case? Especially when it seems like people are always trying to find ways to be happy and fight off the depressing elements in our lives. Why is looking at dark stories not only common, but a human pastime? Well, the Romantics were all about tapping into our emotions, and it seems that a result of this would have been tapping into some of the emotions that writers felt about dark subjects. If someone follows the advice of Romanticism but has a lot of turmoil in his or her life, someone like Edgar Allan Poe for instance, you're going to get very strong emotions about the world and nature, but it's going to be dark, like a big powerful world is out to get you. However, in true Romantic form, Gothic literature still regards nature as sublime, but at times it's sublimely terrible. It sticks around to this day because it's a way to acknowledge that sometimes the world can inflict horror as easily as it can inspire beauty. And especially in the day of constant news and reports from all around the world about things going wrong, it can become actually a coping mechanism. Have you ever had a conversation with your friends about what you would do in the event of the zombie apocalypse? It's kind of fun to think about, but if you think about it some more, it's really dark and unpleasant. But it also simplifies morality a bit. Life is somewhat easier to cope with if we can point to a big gigantic evil that's out to get us, rather than get confused about the ambiguity around us and how it can be tough sometimes to make decisions about right and wrong. The zombie apocalypse is not a world of complex morality. You have one goal: stay alive. That's a simple life, horrible though it may be, and I think people are somewhat attracted to that simplicity. If you're on the run from a monster, you know what to do. There is no confusion, and it's easier to think of yourself as the good guy. So it's important to know where that style originated and how it relates to the novel that we are currently reading, and it has a lot to do with the tone of the work. Tone is the feeling that a writer wants the reader to get throughout their journey through the piece, and the writer accomplishes this through word choice and attitude towards the subject. Gothic works will typically use a tone that is dark or mysterious or foreboding, as if everything is going to collapse into unspeakable horror at any moment. It's quite tense and sometimes dreary. The location and atmosphere and characters, and the choices that the author makes with their words or attitude will combine to contribute to that sense of dread. The presence of a supernatural entity is another element of the Gothic style. This can sometimes be a ghostly thing or a spirit, sometimes it's a monster or a creature, sometimes there's only the threat of the presence of something evil, but this element adds to the tone and creates a world where some rules and logic of our world do not apply. There can be disappearances, implications of supernatural elements, or maybe a twist that explains that what we thought to be paranormal wasn't at all, but still evil and strange. Religion or some kind of spirituality is usually dealt with in some way, even if it's just in the context of the story, like when and where it takes place. And there's often a character that is like linked with another character, like an enemy of sorts, or maybe an evil version of themselves. There may be a psychological element to the character's motivations. There's always some kind of violence, whether it's implied or done right out in the open. And these stories are always macabre. Macabre, for those of you who don't know what that word is or have not seen it on Membean, means to have a grim or ghastly quality. It relates back to the tone of a work. For a work to be truly Gothic, it needs to embrace the macabre full tilt.